Grab your drinks and have a seat. It's time for serial killers.
What's up? We're here. By we, I mean I'm T.
And I'm Raw.
T and Raw. If our voices sound familiar, because probably could you hear us on Crime Bitches? Jay is not here. He had to work, and unfortunately, we procrastinated far too long, and he was unable to make it.
By we, she means Jay.
Absolutely. So Raw is here to fill in. But she knows the deal. Again, if you haven't listened to Crime Bitches, she is my co-host on Crime Bitches. She's my daughter. She's been on this episode before with Jay, so she's just here to take his place this time. So we'll start out by saying, what are you drinking today?
Right now, I'm drinking a Caribou K-Cup,
Oh.
like light roast, with the almond oat milk pumpkin spice Starbucks creamer.
So,
But I did get my first pumpkin
I
spice
was
latte
just
this morning.
going to ask you if you got the pumpkin spice latte this
Well,
morning.
I went to a concert last night, and I was dead to the world this morning, so I had coffee and an Alani.
Your brother got his first pumpkin spice yesterday when it was dropped.
Did he get the pumpkin spice or the pumpkin spice chai? Because he
Pumpkin
liked
spice
that
latte.
one.
He got the
Okay.
pumpkin spice latte.
The pumpkin spice chai is really good.
It
too.
is. I don't even like pumpkin spice, and I
that
like the
one's
pumpkin
really
chai.
good. Like if I want like a like a refreshing drink.
Yeah,
That's the
I
one that
do
I'll
like
go
their
for.
pumpkin chai with soy milk.
Soy. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say I think we normally
He
did soy last
does
year.
soy with his pumpkin spice, and so I did get him that.
I almost did soy this morning, but I just went normal.
Yeah, no, I did get him that, and now he'll be good until like October, and then he'll have probably like one or two more, and then that's it, because he's not a big coffee drinker.
Not me, man.
Now,
I don't know.
for-
I think they changed the pumpkin spice
He
to
said it was
like
good.
because there was like a year that it was disgusting.
Yeah,
like
they were,
everybody,
like, switching their
because they
formula.
switched it, and I think this year they switched it back because
Yeah.
these ones taste good.
He said it was really good. I don't drink pumpkin spice, so I won't be drinking. I'm not drinking a pumpkin spice latte. What I'm
You're missing
drinking,
out.
what I'm drinking instead is just a plain old cup of coffee. But it's,
like that's any better?
but it's the Columbia blend from Nespresso. I've got one monk fruit sweetener in it and some coconut creamer, and I am drinking it hot. Even though it's hot outside, it's cold in our house.
Oh, see, that's what I will say. Pumpkin spice, though, I will only drink a pumpkin spice latte hot, and then the pumpkin spice chai, I will only drink
Iced.
cold. Yep.
So
I
I
can't do opposite.
I do that with gingerbread lattes when they come
Uh-huh.
out. I do gingerbread only hot, and I will never do an iced gingerbread. It's not good. And then if I want something iced, I'll do an iced soy chai because in the Christmas time,
the
that's what it
sugar
is.
cookie latte chai thing that they had last year was pretty good.
What? I don't remember which one it was.
Never mind, cut that part out because I don't think that was real. Wasn't there a sugar cookie drink though?
Yeah, but I don't think it was very good.
A chai, but they did have a chai.
I thought
drink.
they did too. Maybe they have a
Iced
gingerbread chai.
chai?
They might have had a gingerbread
I think
chai.
it was the iced gingerbread chai.
Yeah, and honestly,
That one was really
that
good.
one was good too. I
But
mean, we
iced.
could be lying right now. But I feel like there was an iced gingerbread chai because I'm almost positive that I liked that one iced, but then the other one hot. So that's what we be drinking today. And other than that, I think we're just going to get right into who we're talking about. So this week we are talking about a man named Gary Ray Bowles. Now, Gary Ray is nicknamed the I95 killer. He has 5 to 6 victims. The location of the murders were Maryland, Georgia, and Florida. His murder dates are March to October of 1994. The method of murder was blunt force trauma, strangulation, and shooting. And the characteristics of his murders are robbery, and he focused on gay men. Which is weird because normally it's rape. Like almost always it's rape. This time it is not. Gary was born January 25th, 1962 in Clifton Forge, Virginia. And his father was a coal miner who actually ends up dying of black lung disease 6 months before Gary is born. Now, to be honest with you,
He got the black
That's-
lung.
can you tell that this is Jay's daughter? Because I genuinely was just going to say that if Jay was here, he would have made some joke about the black lung pop.
Yeah.
Nice. You didn't fail me. This is great. Now, Gary also has an older brother. And after his father, he doesn't even know his father because his father passed away before he was even born. Now, his mother actually ends up remarrying multiple times throughout his life. But his second stepfather was an abusive and violent piece of shit. And it was about the age of 7 when the violence and abuse started for Gary. According to Gary, his stepfather would take his anger out on everybody in the family, including the mother, including the 2 boys. The abuse had actually gotten so bad that his mother had been hospitalized multiple times. So he was just a garbage human. Now, at the age of...
did they not do anything about fucking abuse victims that came in multiple times?
My assumption would be she lied about the abuse because that oftentimes happens, especially because when I would assume that she didn't report it because a lot of the times abuse victims, it's like that. They get abused and then the husband or boyfriend or whatever, girlfriend or whoever's doing the abuse is like, I'm sorry, I'll change. I won't do it again. And in this, she's got 2 kids. So this is her second marriage. She's trying to make things work. So my guess is she was hospitalized for things, but used the excuse of like, oh, I fell down the stairs instead of being honest about it. At the age of 10, Gary actually begins huffing paint and glue, which again, you got to realize this is the 70s. At this point, it's 1972. So that's pretty, I feel like when I do these serial killers that huff things like paint and glue, that was popular in like the 70s.
Yeah, that glue was toxic back then.
For it really was. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. When I was a kid, we'd use rubber cement very sparingly. Have you ever used rubber cement in school?
I don't know what the fuck that is.
Okay, so rubber cement is like, it's like a tan, like it looks almost like honey kind of. And it's in this like bottle and the bottle has a brush on it. And you unscrew the cap and there's this brush and you would use it for projects, paper projects and construction paper and stuff. And in school, we would use them. The thing is, you would paint it on, glue your shit together. But the thing that was cool about rubber cement is if you went out, let's say the glue came outside of your paper, if you just rub your finger on it, it'll roll up into a ball. You could literally make rubber glue bouncy balls because that's how like the glue was. That shit had the like biggest stench, but I loved the smell. I would like open the rubber.
So you're a drug addict. Okay.
I would like open the rubber cement and be like I liked, and I'm not the only one. Most of the kids loved using rubber cement because the smell was crazy good and it wasn't good. I think about it now. I'm like, what the fuck? But that I could see how somebody would find sniffing glue and stuff to get you high. I could see it being a thing.
Wow, that's fucking wild.
Okay, so apparently you guys don't use rubber cement in school anymore.
No,
we do. We did.
Elmer's, baby.
We used Elmer's too, but rubber cement it was easier. You know how?
Well, let me rephrase. Maybe the art kids use rubber cement.
Well, okay.
But I never did art. So.
When you would glue with like
elementary.
Elmer's glue, you know how like you put the glue on and it leaves like the glue lines when you put your construction paper on.
Annoying.
Yeah, rubber cement
ruins the project.
It doesn't do that. That's why rubber cement, and you can buy it at like a regular store.
Why didn't you buy us rubber cement? When we
because
were in
they
school?
said glue. They told you specifically what glue. I don't know why they don't use
the
rubber
difference?
cement. Yes, they
We
would.
got probably better grades.
So he begins sniffing or huffing glue and paint. He also then continues on later in life to start using other drugs, and he actually ends up dropping out of school during junior high, like middle school. He was done with it. Now at the age of 13. Gary decides he's actually going to fight back against his abusive stepfather. So him and his brother actually, one of the times when the stepfather was trying to basically beat the shit out of him, they go outside and they get rocks and they fucking beat him up with rocks. 13-year-old and his brother was older, so 13 and however old his brother was, they grabbed rocks and fought back against the stepfather with rocks, and it caused severe injuries to his stepfather. And not too long after this incident happens, Gary ends up leaving home. Like packs his bags and leaves. So remember, he is 13 years old when this happens. So he's probably 14 maybe when he packs up and leaves. And he leaves partially and mainly because his mother, after everything that happened with the stepfather, chose to stay with the stepfather.
That's a piece of shit right there.
Yeah, and so he was like, he was so mad at his mom, so he was like, nope, I'm out of here. So he leaves. And also, he wanted to get away from his home life. It was a rough life. He didn't like it, so he packs up and leaves. Now, for the next few years after he leaves home, Gary's homeless, and he actually supports himself pretty much through prostitution. And now you have to remember, again, he is a teenager living on the streets. So I'm talking like 14, 15, 16 years old. He is living on the streets and is a prostitute. That's a rough life. Again, no excuses for his behaviors, but maybe a little bit of an explanation as to why he turned out the way he did. So in 1982, Gary's now 20 years old, and he's actually arrested for sexually assaulting and beating his girlfriend. And he gets convicted of this, and he is sentenced to 6 years in prison. So he ends up actually going to prison. Then in 1991, he is arrested again. So he goes to prison, does his 6 years, gets out, and in 1991, he's arrested again. But this time, he is arrested for stealing an elderly woman's purse. And not just like yank, run away, like shoving the older lady to the ground, yanks her purse out of her hand, kind of hurts her. And so he is actually given a 4-year sentence for that. And then he also had another incident, some other type of stealing incident that was coupled into that. So he had a couple of things. So he's sentenced, but he only ends up serving 2 years, because you know how that goes. We don't ever want to fully punish for the full time, just a little. So on March 14th, 1994, in Daytona Beach, Florida, Gary actually murders a man named John Hardy Roberts, who's 59 years old. Now, John had actually offered Gary a temporary place to live. They had met, and he was kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of bouncing around from home to home. And he's like, well, I have a place. If you want to stay, like, that's cool. Gary ends up killing John. Gary strangles and beats John to death. And the police are actually called to the home of John, and they find him lying on the living room floor. He had a rag stuffed into his mouth. He had trauma to his head, and he had been strangled. And the room most definitely looked like there had been some sort of a struggle, and there was blood spattered all over the living room. Police also find that John's car and wallet, including his credit cards and cash, were also missing. Now, they start collecting, obviously, evidence, and there's a shit ton of evidence here, especially just blood alone. They were able to collect fingerprints. They were able to find probation papers that belonged to fucking Gary. So there's that. They found phone records that also showed that several phone calls had been placed to Gary's family members. And there was also a warning on John's credit cards that somebody had tried to use his credit cards, but they were denied. At this point, police now know, we're pretty sure we're looking for Gary Bowles, and we're pretty sure that he's the one who murdered John. So they're like, yep, let's go look for Gary. But by the time they try to figure out where he is nowhere to be found. They don't even know where to look for him because, again, he's kind of doesn't have a place of permanent residency. So they're just kind of like, okay, well, I guess we'll put it out in the world that we have a man named Gary Bowles. This is his description. He is wanted in questioning on suspicion of murder. April 14th, 1994. So this is literally a month later. The body of David Jarman, who's 38, is found by a building maintenance man. Now, the body was in the basement of David's home, and he had been beaten and strangled. He also had a rag stuffed into his mouth. His wallet and his car was also missing. And witnesses tell police that they had seen David at a gay bar in Washington, D.C. the night before he had died. And they were explaining who the man is that they saw him with. And the description matched very much so Gary Bowles' description. They also found that David's stolen credit cards had been used, and the signature on the credit cards matched Gary's signature, which also, why the fuck you signing your own name, Gary?
Yeah, that's
dumb. So
like,
there's
at least
that.
make it the
At least
name
fake
on the
the
fucking
name.
card.
Yeah. So they now have that. However, really at this point they're like, okay, so we're looking for a man named Gary Bowles who supposedly looks like this. Okay. By the time they go to look for Gary Bowles, they are not able to find him. Once again, he is bounced out of town. They don't know where to look. They contact his family. Nobody has seen or heard from him. And they're just like, cool, awesome. But they also have now connected with police in Florida. And so now police in Florida and DC are also going, okay, so we have the same guy who's wanted for both of these murders. The murders alone were similar. Both had things shoved in their mouth. They were both beaten. They were both strangled. Their wallets and keys were stolen to their cars. And they had something that put Gary at the scene. In the first one, it's the probation papers. In the second one, it's literal descriptions of him being with that guy. Now, on May 5th, 1994, so 1 month later, Milton Bradley, who is 72, also a World War II veteran, is found at a club for golfers, like a golf club, behind a shed. He had things that were stuffed in his mouth almost all the way down his throat. He had been asphyxiated, and he had also been severely beaten. There was a palm print that was found at the scene, and this palm print actually matched, guess who? Gary's palm print, or like Gary's hands. They also found that Milton had been seen with a man who matched Gary's description days before he was killed. So now they're sitting there going, okay, we need to figure out what the fuck is going on, because this guy is literally like traveling to all these different places and he's killing people. He's not being careful. He's being seen, like everybody, like there's people who can actually place him in these areas with these men, but they're all killed the same way. Every single one of them that had stuff shoved in their mouth, it was so far back that it literally could be part of what killed them, like blocks their airway, which is pretty fucking terrible in my opinion. So they're like, we need to get a description out there of Gary. We need to kind of start pointing out that he is now wanted and questioning for 3 murders. We are suspicious that he has 3 murders. And now we're kind of seeing, we have a potential serial killer. So on May 13th or 19th, there's 2 different dates. I couldn't decipher because I literally had like 10 articles up and like half of them said the 13th, half of them said the 19th. But sometime in May, the body of Albert Morris, who was 37, in Nassau County, Florida. A towel had been stuffed in his mouth. And he also had a towel tied around his head. He had been beaten and he was shot in the chest. So this is a little different, but he also had been strangled to death. And it was shown in the autopsy that he actually died from strangulation. So the shot, the gunshot, the beating of the head, the shoving the stuff in his mouth, none of that. It was the strangulation that killed him. And his wallet and his car were also missing. Obviously, immediately at this point, because this is back in Florida, Gary is suspected of this murder. Basically because they're like, this is Gary's MO. This is literally what he has done to every single person that we are suspected that he is killing. So yeah, they're basically connected now because again, Florida, DC, and Michigan, they're all talking to each other. They're all trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. And they realize this man is killing people. We cannot find him. We know who it is, but for some reason we can't find him. They actually believe that Albert had met Gary in a gay bar and that he was invited back to his home because they were seen the night before the murder at a bar. And they actually got into an argument at the bar and they were kicked out of the bar and left together. So people were very much like, no, that guy was with, like they would show his picture to people and they're like, oh yeah, no, he was here with him last night. So they know that Gary is responsible for this murder as well. Also in May 1994, a man named Alverson Carter Jr., who was 47 in Atlanta, Georgia. His body was also found, and the crime scene was very similar to all the other previous murders, with the stuff in his mouth, with the strangling, with the beating, but he had been stabbed to death. But everything else was very much the same. And later on, forensic evidence actually found at the scene was able to link the murder to Gary. So later, after they have found Gary and all that stuff, they were able to take forensic evidence from Alverson Carter's murder and pin that on, or not pin it on him, but like prove that he was the one who did it based off DNA, like not DNA, but based off forensics. Then November 18th, 1994, a woman, she was really worried about her brother, Walter Jamel Hinton. She had not talked to him, even though he had promised that he was going to call her. And he promised that he would call her like the next day. Like she had called him or tried to get a hold of him. And he was like, yeah, I'm kind of busy. I promise I'll call you the next day. He doesn't call. So she waits. He doesn't call. So she ends up sending her fiance to his home in Duval County, Florida. She's like, go to the house, check on him, just make sure he's okay. Because like, normally, if he promises he's going to call me, he's going to call me. And the fact that he hasn't even tried to get a hold of me kind of makes me worried that something might have happened to him. So her fiance goes to the home. Walter's nowhere to be found. But the lights are on his house. It looks like somebody could be there, but he's looking in the windows. Like the doors are locked and stuff. So he's looking in the windows. Can't see anything. He just sees the lights on. He's like, okay, well, like he's not home, but like he's been here obviously because his lights are on. So he goes back, tells his fiance like, yeah, he's fine, I think, but he might not even be there. So his lights were on. So he obviously had been there at some point. I don't even think his car was in the driveway. So I think they basically were like, well, maybe he was gone or whatever. So they kind of let it ride. Well, 2 days later, he does not show up for work. Now, at this point, his sister becomes even more worried because she's like, okay, I can understand maybe he got busy or whatever and couldn't call me, but to not show up to work, that's a bigger problem. She tells her fiance, okay, well, now we need to go back to his house and look because the fact that he hasn't called me and now he's not showing up to work, what if something happened to him? So they go back to his home. And at this point, the lights are still on. Everything still looks kind of the same. And he tells her like, no, this is literally how it looks. And so they're like, no, we're going to break in. We're breaking into this house because we need to find out if he's in here or like what happened. So he lives in a mobile home. So it's not as hard to break into these homes. So they end up getting into the home. And when they enter the home, they actually find that there's a very foul odor coming from inside the home. And then they go to the bedroom and the bedroom is like an absolute mess. And they said a mess as in it looked like there had been some sort of a fight. It wasn't like he was a hoarder who left messy shit. It was literally like something happened in this room. It looks like a struggle had happened in this room. But he's not there. They then go into the bathroom. And as they're in the bathroom, they see like this weird pile of blankets like piled up in the middle of the floor of the bathroom. And they're like, that's fucking bizarre. So they go to the blankets to kind of pick them up. And they discover under the blanket is Walter's decomposing body. Police are called, obviously. They arrive and they notice that Walter's personal papers, like whatever personally had to do with him, any sort of things, and his wallet had been thrown onto the bed in the bedroom. Then on the floor next to the bed was a large bloodied stepping stone that was hidden under a pile of sheets. They also found a receipt with the name Timothy Whitfield on it, and a car and a watch belonging to Walter were missing. So it's now determined that Walter's head had been crushed in by that large stone, the one that they found next to the bed. They also found that he had broken ribs. He had abrasions on his limbs. He had toilet paper and a rag in his mouth shoved down his throat. Toilet paper. And then a rag. And his cause of death was strangulation. Some of the articles said sex toys were shoved down his throat as well. But only a few of them. So I was just like, just so you know, he just had a lot of stuff shoved down his throat, which again, fucking atrocious. I couldn't, like, you can't breathe. Doesn't matter what's in you can't breathe. So witnesses say, after police are talking to people, that a man had been actually staying at the home with Walter. And they were like, okay, so what can you describe to us what this man looks like? They start doing the description and they're like, let me show you some pictures. And they're able to pick out Gary Bowles as the person who was living with Walter. So now they're like, yeah, okay. So we know Gary is now, this is like the 6th person or whatever that Gary has killed. We need to find him. October 22nd, 1995. Gary is finally found and arrested for the murder of Walter Hinton. Once he's in custody, he actually ends up confessing to 6 murders total. He was also asked why he chose to murder gay men, because it had been determined that he had hated gay men. Like they had actually had a whole conversation. And he had said that he did not like gay men. Not gay people in general, just gay men. And so he was asked, like, is that why you chose to just murder gay men? Because you have a problem with gay men? And they had a whole conversation. And part of this conversation was talking about how he would basically lure men. So he says, well, they only performed an act on him, and that he never did anything to them, right? So he'd say, like, I'd meet these guys at gay bars. We'd go back to their house. They would only perform acts on me. I would not perform acts on them. To which the detective says, well, that's homosexuality. And then Gary says, no, it's not. So the detective says, well, then what are you if you're not a homosexual, since this is what you're telling us? And he said, I'm a hustler.
A hustler?
That's what he said. I'm a hustler. Because he was taking all their money. He was robbing them. He was killing them and then taking. So in his mind, whether he's gay or not, in his mind, he was seeing this as, I'm going to kill these people for their cars and their wallets. Because he would take their money, their cash, their credit cards, and their cars. And he would use their credit cards if he could. And if he couldn't, then he would just use their cash and move on to the next thing. I don't know if I believe 100% that's why, but whatever. Whatever. So in May of 1996, Gary actually pleads guilty to the murder of Walter and he receives the death sentence. Then, August of 1997, Gary pleads guilty to the murder of John Roberts, who was his very first victim. Because both of those murders happened in Florida, therefore he can be tried for both of them in Florida. Sometimes they will only get you, like if Florida is where he was arrested and he's murdered somebody in Florida, and let's say all the rest of his victims are in Texas, sometimes they won't even charge you for the Texas ones because he got the death penalty in Florida. And if he gets charged in Texas, he has to be extradited to Texas and has to go through their criminal proceedings, and his death penalty can't happen until he's done with that. So he does that. Now, eventually Gary is convicted of 3 counts of murder, for 3 more counts of murder, and he is sentenced to death for those as well. But this ends up getting reversed by the Florida Supreme Court after it is determined that the information regarding that the victims were gay and the fact that Gary hated gay men should never have been given to the jury, which I disagree with. I disagree with that, because if he hated gay men and he focused on gay men, wouldn't that be important? Couldn't that be a hate crime?
And that I feel is part of the motive.
That's what I'm
saying. So how could that not be a part of
right? That's a very important
the decision making.
Right, because you think about it. If he killed 6 men, all of them were gay. He found most of them in gay bars. He lured them by pretending
knew where he was going.
Exactly.
To try, like you were saying, lure them by acting like he was gay. And
I don't know why or how or why it wasn't charged as a hate crime, because if he was targeting just gay men, I don't understand how that was not a hate crime anyways, because that means he's killing people because he doesn't like the fact that they're gay. So again, this is a different time though. I mean, this was 97. So, the hate crime stuff wasn't as popular, or not popular, but wasn't as pushed. But yeah, so his first death penalty stood, but he received the death penalty for 3 murders that they actually reversed because they were like, well, the juror should have never known that he hated gay people and that the victims were gay. And I'm kind of like, well, but yeah, that's important. So yeah, they should have. So anyways, so in 1999, they do a resentencing trial. It's not that he doesn't get, it's not that he didn't get found guilty. It was that he needed to be resentenced, and that the Florida Supreme Court was like, the death penalty might not be right. And so they told he had to do a resentencing. So in 1999, he does a new sentencing hearing for those 3 murders, and he is once again given the death penalty. So it's just a waste of fucking court time and money, really. Shit. Now, Gary actually tries to appeal his sentence numerous times. Like, he literally sat there and tried over and over to appeal his sentences, because I don't think he thought he deserved the death penalty, which I don't know why not, but okay. And every single one of them was denied. All of them. Then on August 22nd, 1999, Gary was executed by lethal injection. Aren't you happy you're sitting in on this one? Because a lot of ours end with people not being not euthanized. With people not.
In my version of the world,
correct.
Euthanized.
In your it's euthanized. But most of our cases that we talk about, the person gets commuted to life sentence, or they're in fucking California where their death penalty can't come true. This guy actually was executed. Aren't you happy? So he was executed by lethal injection. His last meal was 3 cheeseburgers, fries, and bacon.
Brush, that sounds good.
I mean, all right then. Now, his final words were, he apologized. And he said he apologizes for all the pain and suffering I have caused. He then also tells his mother, having to deal with your son being called a monster is terrible. I am so very sorry. I never wanted this to be my life. You don't wake up one day and decide to become a serial killer. That's what he said, which, yeah, I'm not going to lie. I feel the same way. I feel like most people, I do feel like I can't say nobody ever, but really, truly, most people that I have studied serial killer wise, they did not wake up one day and go, oh, I'm going to be a serial killer. There are things that lead to it, whether it's nature, whether it's nurture, whether it's a mixture of both. but something triggers or leads somebody to be a serial killer. But I don't.
I'm actually shocked that his victims weren't mother figures.
I know.
Based on the childhood.
I know. But see, this is why serial killers are so interesting to me, because based off of his background, you would think, correct, he was pissed off at his mom. He ran away from home because he was pissed off that his mom chose her husbands over her kids. And he goes out and kills gay men. That had nothing to do with his lifestyle. But what it does do is it just shows you, I mean, he was doing drugs at a young age. He was drinking at a young age. He was doing that kind of stuff. So
but
that
think about
starts
he was doing prostitution.
But exactly.
So now it makes sense why it would be gay men.
Right. Because he
it was
started
the
prostitution.
that triggered it, not the mom.
Correct. And that's why it's always important to me to try to get background, because if I were to tell you about Gary Bowles without telling you any of his background, you'd be like, well, why do he hate gay people? Like, what the fuck happened? Why was he apologizing to his mom? Why did he say he didn't want to do this? Like, obviously you're a serial killer. You want to kill people. But knowing his background, not saying that he didn't want to kill people. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that the prostitution thing, correct. If he was a prostitute, by the way, he was a prostitute to men. That is correct. That could trigger him hating gay people.
See, I feel like this is because it's always nature versus nurture, but I feel like this is.
I feel
like
both.
this is nurture.
I think it's a mixture.
Well, yeah, I guess it would be both.
I think it's a mixture only because I think the way he was brought up and how his life was fucked, totally fucked. But I would venture to say that almost every serial killer I've ever studied so far, they were born with just a little bit of bad, evil shit in them. Because he said it correctly. Most people do not wake up one day and be like, I'm going to kill somebody. Unless you already feel like you could be a killer. And then other things happen. There are some there are extenuating circumstances, of course, of people who maybe have like schizophrenia where they have voices that tell them to kill people. That's a little different. But for the most part, yeah, I think that nurture has a lot to do with serial killers. I think background, I think how they're raised has a lot to do with serial killers. Because when you look at serial killers as a whole, majority of them had really awful backgrounds. However, there are some that had pretty decent backgrounds, honestly, where they were raised in a household that it's like, what the fuck happened to you? Why would you kill people? They're the ones that are just born. They're the ones that wake up and become a serial killer. The only time I can see somebody waking up and be a serial killer is if it's bred in you. So, but his whole thing from the day up until the day he died was, I didn't want to be this. He actually said that multiple times. He multiple times said, I never wanted to kill anybody. I never wanted to be this person, but he was that person. So, and that's why he fought, I think, so hard to not be put to death, because he didn't want to die for his crimes. But too bad. Too bad. When you kill people, you got to die. So that's the story of Gary Bowles. Do you want to hear the shots?
Shot.
Ooh, she's bringing the shots in. So from 1982 to 1993, so basically an 11-year period, Gary was literally in and out of prison, but mostly in prison. So he spent a lot of time, which is, again, like you said, the nature or nurture part. That could be another part. He's going in and out of prison. Now, I've never been to prison, but I have heard some things about prison.
You know what they say about prison. We all know.
So that could also have something to do with his hatred for men, particularly gay men. Now, America's Most Wanted actually did an episode on Gary. Do you know what America's Most Wanted is? Okay. Is it even still on? Shit, I don't even know. I used to love that show.
We were actually just talking about that the other day.
If it's not, they need to bring that shit back.
Yeah.
Because people like...
No, actually, I think we looked it up and I don't think it's a show anymore.
Man, they need to bring that shit back, because people like dude from Wenatchee that disappeared and still hasn't been found that killed his 3 daughters. Get his fucking face out there, right? So they did an episode on Gary Bowles. And immediately after it aired, there were numerous tips that came in from viewers that had seen him. However, by this time, Gary had already moved on to another state. So they aired it, and they actually aired his story multiple times. But the first time they aired it, there were so many people that were like, oh my God, I literally just saw that guy like last week, blah, blah, blah. But by the time they put those tips together, that show really did help. I loved when I would watch America's Most Wanted and they do an update episode. So they do like America's Most Wanted. They'd tell you like whatever they're telling you for the week. And then towards the end of the show, they'd be like, hey, update. And they would show you the capture. They would show you the ones that they had done previously that got captured because of it. It was fucking, see, I was like, in middle school and in high school when I watch that shit all the time. So I've been a true crime junkie for a very long time. The way that Gary would work his victims was to prostitute himself to his victims. And then he would offer to have them take him home as more of a prostitute than anything. And then he would strangle and beat them and steal their credit card. That was literally his goal, was to steal their credit cards and kill them. He actually did assume another identity. So remember when they found the receipt on the last murder of a man named Timothy Whitfield? They found this receipt in his house. That was actually Gary's other identity. He had actually created this new identity of Timothy Whitfield, and he did it specifically to help him evade being captured because he knew they were looking for him. And he was back in Florida. So he knew that if he went around saying, I'm Gary Bowles, he's going to get arrested. And that other identity lasted about 4 months. Then on November 20th of 1994, Gary was actually placed on the FBI's most wanted list. Now, while being questioned about Walter's murder, which was the last murder, Walter Hinton, Gary said to them, so they're talking to him and they're like, yeah, so we have some questions for you about this guy. Da, da, da. They're asking him all these questions and he says, I quote, look, I'm tired of this. Do you want to know who I really am?
Oh, because it's such a big secret, bud.
And so I guess that's probably about the time when he was like, I've killed like 6 people. Do you want to know who they are? And he was also asked in that same interview why he killed Walter, right? Just because they were focusing on Walter because that's who they had arrested him for. And he says it was time to move on. That's literally his response. Not anything. It was time to move on. Like, you could just packed up your shit and walked out the house. Like, I don't know. You didn't have to take his life. Now, some detectives think that he may have killed more and that some might have actually been women because they actually think that Gary was bisexual. So they think that there's probably more men that he killed and there's probably some women that he actually killed as well. Because in his interview, he gladly admitted to killing the men, like almost boastfully was like, oh yeah, I did this guy. This is what I did, like whatever. And they would ask him, okay, well, have you killed any women? And he would say every time, let's change the subject. And he wouldn't talk about it.
So it's a yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what detectives say. Detectives are like, the fact that he would boastfully talk about killing men, but would not say, no, I did not kill women, but would say, let's change the subject. We all know that is basically he's guilty of killing at least a woman, if not more. So unfortunately, because he's dead, we'll never know who, what, when, where. But if there's anybody out there who's in the crime field and you know of women who were killed and had shit shoved down their throat and they were beaten and strangled to death, you might want to talk to the Florida police about his crimes because maybe they're connected. We just don't know how to put them together anymore. That was the story of Gary Bowles, the I-95 killer. And sorry that Jay's not here. Again, we kind of slacked off and then didn't do what we were supposed to. So Raw filled in, and I was going to try to get my son to do it, but he was really, he was very much like, if I have to, I will. And
also, he's very monotone.
Well, and he said specifically, I will sit there with you, but I cannot guarantee you I will speak. And I said, well, that is not very fun for a podcast. Not that Raw spoke a lot, but she at least said something because I was afraid that he would say not a single thing. So that's why she's here. Jay will be back next week as usual. And if you like what you hear on Fatal Blend, make sure you're following us and make sure you share us. And if you like the voice of myself in Raw, make sure you're following Crime Bitches because that's where you'll hear her every single week. Every week.
Dropping lots of curse words.
She's a little different on that one. She's a little more involved because I
know how it goes.
It's just a different vibe. I mean, it's a different vibe. Fatal Blend is a married couple that kind of bickers and kind of,
Kinda?
All right. Yeah, we do our thing. Whereas Crime Bitches is us. We're more like friends. She's my daughter, but we're more like
we
friends.
only have a 20-year age gap.
Yeah, so we're not 19, but yes, we're 19.
We're
Not like a typical mother-daughter. And so we've got a very we feel the same way about a lot of things. And you'll know because we vibe very well on that. So it's just a little different. But thank you very much for listening to us talk about Gary Bowles, the I-95 killer. And until next week, bye.
Bye-bye.
Remember to lock your doors and bar your windows. Until next time.